Hey guys, so I'm back with another video related to Satoshi Nakamoto and Sergey Ivancheglo, the Qubic creator, actually being Satoshi Nakamoto. And I know some of you guys have probably listened to this and thinking, geez, this guy has lost the plot. Is he still talking about this? And yeah, sometimes I feel like it as well, but the more I've looked into this, I'm like getting super confident that Sergey Ivancheglo actually is Satoshi Nakamoto. I can't 100%, prove it, but I'm really, really close. I don't think until he admits it, I'll be able to prove it, but came across some really, really interesting, facts about it today, and I want you guys to see some of them. Um, so there's Satoshi, the fake Satoshi. So the first fact is, which I'm sure some of you are aware of or whatever, but I'm only learning this stuff now properly. The Bitcoin Genesis block was mined on the 3rd of January 2009, by obviously Satoshi Nakamoto after they created Bitcoin. The next group of Bitcoin blocks were mined on the 9th of January. And all this time, he's building up some conversation and talking with Hal Finney about Bitcoin. It's widely believed then that at least the first 10 Bitcoin blocks were mined by Satoshi, probably more, but it's, a widely held belief. So we can say with 99.99% confidence that the first 10 blocks at least were mined by Satoshi, and all that mining done on the 9th of January was done by Satoshi. And we can really say with, nearly absolute confidence that the first 5 blocks were mined by Satoshi. And, you can look this up in a load place, but just one place I looked it up was ChatGPT, and, that confirms it as well. And so then the second fact, and this is the most important fact and one of the most interesting things you will ever hear in crypto, or probably even in your life if you're into mysteries and stuff like that. As mad that more people aren't talking about this, but this is the most important fact. And it relates to this Bitcoin address. So it's 15 Ubic, BBWF, NVO, ZLT, and then the rest of all this information. But this address was created on the 9th of January. It's the 4th block ever created on the Bitcoin network, meaning it was 99.99% created by Satoshi. Because as we said, those first 5 blocks were mined by Satoshi. This one's the 4th block ever created. It was created on the 9th of January. It basically has to be created by Satoshi. The reason I say basically and 99.99% is, there's always room to be wrong, but it seems undeniable that this was created by Satoshi, and no one even knew what Bitcoin was at that stage, other than a few emails to Hal Finney, who didn't start mining Bitcoin until a bit later. What's interesting about this address as well is it's a custom address, possibly the first ever custom address created on the Bitcoin network, because it starts with a 1, and that's what a custom address is. So somebody created this address themselves, manually created it, and we know that somebody was Satoshi. And then we can look up the block. I've looked up the block, and we can see the information on this address and the block ID 4 block ever created on the 9th of January. So did you know something that was interesting about the 7 opening characters? I'm sure you did. They say 15 Ubic. And, that would almost look to someone like it says the name Qubic. And by the way, when I got into Qubic, I just believe in the project. I don't care if Sergey Ivancheglo is Satoshi. It wasn't that I got into Qubic because I thought Sergey Ivancheglo was Satoshi. I got into it because I started seeing, this is a next level project by the looks of things, like far ahead of any other crypto project, in my opinion. And it's only just by coincidence then stuff like this started popping up. I started looking into it more, and I was like, Jesus, like I thought this was crazy at first, didn't want to believe it, was completely in denial of it. And then just the facts started speaking for themselves. So here's one of the most interesting facts. It almost looks like Qubic. If we know it's a custom created address, and for a long time then it's just frustrating, why doesn't it just say Q? But it couldn't say Q, I guess, because of that 1. And the 15 doesn't equal Q, because Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet. But then this community member, Samson, actually they're Samson LA, so I tagged the wrong person there. They eventually figured out that the custom Bitcoin address are created using something called base 58 coding. And guess what? Base 58 coding, it excludes letters I and L and O, I think, something like that anyway, meaning that Q is the 15th letter. So we've got a diagram that shows it here. So 0 goes, capital I goes, capital O goes, and the small L goes. So with capital I and the capital O go, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15th letter is Q. Base 58 was created by Satoshi. So Satoshi obviously knew 15th letter is Q. Let's throw in something interesting. And people can figure it out then. Then also in the address, so just think about that. Satoshi created an address and Qubic was the name at the start of it. I mean, conspiracy stuff, tinfoil hat stuff, but I'll show you in a second why it's not even that tinfoil hat. So then it's a case of the chicken or the egg, which came first. Did Satoshi create that address first, and then years later, Sergey Ivancheglo managed to find that address, which isn't easy to find, by the way. It's not publicly available, so you have to go and look for it. But did he find that address and say, oh, you know what, I'll name my project Qubic? That's possible that happened. But also you got to think, Satoshi then put that address in there for some reason. He put that information in there. He didn't randomly make this address up. This whole address, it's one of the first addresses ever created with Bitcoin. So you got to think, he's sitting at his computer. Just imagine yourself in the situation. You're Satoshi Nakamoto. You've created this incredible technology. You've done one of the most unique things ever. You're a mysterious person. You're creating your first custom address ever. You can put anything you want into it. Would you be tempted to put some hints to the future in it, some hints to who you are in it, something in it? You wouldn't just create a random address. You'd put something in there of interest. And Satoshi Nakamoto chose to put Qubic at the start, but he didn't, and nobody else has ever done anything related to Qubic since. So we've never seen Satoshi put a reason for Qubic in there. We just know that since Sergey Ivancheglo said that Qubic means quorum-based coin, which Qubic is quorum-based. More interesting stuff that's in that address. So you see this part that says NVOZLT. Well, it turns out in Russian, Novo Zoloto literally means new gold. Again, a little bit of a stretch, but you got to look at it and think, well, he's not picking random numbers. He's putting things in because he's creating this address. He's probably going to put something in that's interesting, and he's put in something that's very like Novo Zoloto. And as we all know, Bitcoin was considered new gold. And as we all know, since Ivancheglo and thought that Bitcoin was flawed, Satoshi obviously moved on to other things, so he probably thought Bitcoin was flawed. And there's a lot of flaws with Bitcoin in terms of scalability. So then is that Ivancheglo thought, well, Qubic's the new gold. And then we've got the BBWF thing in here. And I think often that means big, beautiful women or something like that. But some people suggest that, but I would say there's something more to it. The guy here is decoding it as meaning 2306, 2022. I don't know is that definitely right, because that wasn't the date that Qubic was created, but I feel like there's something in there as well that's worth exploring. But the Qubic part's undeniable. That's just crazy. Then something else that would make you think that Ivancheglo is Satoshi Nakamoto is on the 12th of January, Satoshi emails Hal Finney, says a load of stuff just talking about Bitcoin, and then he ends by saying, the people will probably start putting their initials at the start of addresses and stuff like that. And he said, just by chance, I have my initials. And then you can see Satoshi Nakamoto has initials reversed quite strangely. So it could be Nick Szabo, interesting one as well, but he's got his initials in there. So that would say that's why he put his initials in there. But then one day later, on the 13th of January, one CFB pops up. Now, CFB being the initials that Sergey Ivancheglo uses online, very famously and well known, has come from beyond. He puts that in one day later. Now, you could say, well, yeah, that's a day later, and Satoshi Nakamoto's initials appear on the day that he sent this email. But you've got to remember, this is an email thread between Hal Finney and Satoshi Nakamoto. The rest of the world is not seeing this. So there's only three possibilities here. Either Sergey Ivancheglo was Satoshi Nakamoto. Actually, there's four possibilities. Either Sergey Ivancheglo was Satoshi Nakamoto. Either Sergey Ivancheglo was Hal Finney, which he definitely wasn't. Hal Finney's dead. Everyone knows who Hal Finney is, so he wasn't Hal Finney. The third possibility is that Sergey Ivancheglo was hacking their emails and could see this email and thought, oh, cool, I'm going to set up an address now to make it look like it was Satoshi. Or the fourth option is, and that's really, really unlikely that he was hacking their emails. I don't think that's likely. The fourth option then is that it was just a coincidence and Sergey Ivancheglo decided to create an address with CFB in it the day after this email was sent, which is pretty unlikely too. Possible, but pretty unlikely. So, the most likely one, I think any of you would agree if you think about it, is that he was Satoshi and that he created this address, and then a day later he goes and creates this address on the 13th. Mind-blowing. Then, and I forgot to actually paste this in here, but I wanted to show you some examples, because a big thing that people say is, well, Sergey Ivancheglo isn't a native English speaker and he doesn't write English very well. But Ivancheglo has said in the past that he was using paraphrasers back then when he was Satoshi. So he started coming out and saying openly that he was Satoshi. And he's only said this since Qubic launched. He always denied it before that, but now he's openly saying it in the Discord and then deleting the comments and so on. But he said that he was using a paraphraser, and it was a great way to make it appear that he was from a certain area. And you can read, this is why I forgot to paste in, you can read documents of Sergey Ivancheglo where they're perfect English, really, really well written. Then you can read the next document. One's in American English, the other's in British English. Then the other one has misspellings all over the place and is really poorly written in kind of broken English, and just have like these different split personalities writing all these documents. But guess who did that as well? Satoshi Nakamoto. His spell, this is some reports that were done, and you can find these, just Google search them yourself, but he had inconsistent spelling. He switch from British spelling like favor, then he'd switch into American English terms like using characterized, and there's no apparent pattern to how he writes. He just writes and uses different norms. Also, apparently, his writing style, there's like mistakes in his writing. There's inconsistencies in his grammar and misspellings in it as well. So it's not as simple as Satoshi was this great writer and Sergey Ivancheglo isn't a native speaker. It matches up the way they write things, and something is suspicious about the way Satoshi wrote. And maybe he was trying to cover his tracks, but maybe Sergey Ivancheglo is trying to cover his tracks. Then a really, really interesting thing is you go and you take Come From Beyond, and you'll see here that he's existed with that name since 2002. At the earliest that we can track online, we can see documents written by him in 2002 and signed by Come From Beyond. And then the way he has it written online now, it's a big C, small f, a big B. And interestingly then, if you rotate that 180 degrees and flip the characters horizontally, you can see it spells Bitcoin. And I mean, again, could be a coincidence, but Jesus Christ, that's some amount of coincidence I'm after telling you is the one about the 1 CFB, about the 15 Qubic, the Novo Slotto, meaning new gold, basically spelt in there. And then you flip his initials over that he's been using since 2002 and you get Bitcoin. And, I'll make another video about this soon. I'm going to make a video for the Bitcoin or for general community and general people, tracking everything, breaking down the timeline and trying to say, this is revealing who Satoshi Nakamoto is as much as I can say. I'll probably be more, this is Satoshi Nakamoto, or try and make it more like a documentary and scripted the way I'm going to do it. But, I'll share in that video examples of him showing how he came up with the name Satoshi Nakamoto. I'll share in that video. I can't even remember what I was going to say. I had an interesting point to make about how he's flipped these letters horizontally. Damn it, I can't remember what it was that I was going to write, but I'm going to say, but I'll have it in that video anyway. But guys, it's just amazing that people don't see this, or they think their main thing that they keep coming back to is that Satoshi and Ivancheglo had different personalities. Satoshi was this respectful guy who wanted to change the world, and Sergey Ivancheglo is this arsehole who doesn't want to change the world. Satoshi Nakamoto created a decentralized currency to take power away from the banks. Sergey Ivancheglo has created Qubic, and with Qubic, he's created a project that's decentralizing AI, that's decentralizing money again. It's open source, it's anti-military. I mean, it's completely in line with Satoshi Nakamoto's principles. He just has a different personality. He's like a troll and very out there, while Satoshi was very reserved and professional. But like, the guy's obviously a genius. Of course, he's going to switch personalities to not be tracked. I think it's just mad that people don't get that. They haven't met either of these people and they think they know them. By the way, I'll just say about Qubic as well, in case you didn't know, because when we just go back here to the it's in this address in 2009, Sergey Ivancheglo first mentioned Qubic by name in 2012, and I think in 2013 he was talking about BC Next, who is another, and we'll go through this in another video, another completely fictitious person that he made up that created the project NXT. And then 4 years later, Ivancheglo reveals himself that he actually was BC Next all that time. And he says in that the BC Next is going to come back someday and create his real project. And his real project was Qubic. Like this, so it's mind blowing. Guys, if you don't, you should just watch this video again if it's not beginning to make sense to you, or it doesn't add up. I mean, nobody has this level of proof behind them. You can't guarantee it, but I'd say it's very, very likely that this guy is Satoshi Nakamoto. And we'll get into it in other videos, because think, what's his plan for all those Bitcoin he owns? What's his plan for Bitcoin in general, or the crypto industry in general? I mean, this guy probably has a big plan in place. So it's interesting. That's all I got for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you don't think I'm going crazy. Just look at it with an open mind. It's wild. I'll chat to you soon.